Hello and welcome to the latest from Hearts Standard. I am delighted. My name's Joe Skid. Sorry, I'm delighted to be joined on once more by James Kearney. How's it going, James?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. Although it's very much feeling like the off season now, like already. Like I'm already kind of a bit. Where's the football? I want to watch the football. There's not enough football. Like thankfully, we've got the Euros coming up, so only a couple of weeks to go. But yeah, I'm already kind of getting a bit antsy.
Yeah, I'm not. It's fine. No football. Absolutely fine. We can give it another few weeks before that starts up. But yeah, like you said, the Euros is around the corner. Quite like just having no plans on the weekends when those rare occasions do crop
That,
up.
that that does make a nice change. Like I never have weekends off ever. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever had weekends off since about like 14. So this is great.
So before we get into talking about the latest news from Tynecastle Park, which I'm sure many have already seen, that Joe Savage is set to leave his role as sporting director at the club later on this summer. But we've got some exciting news from our sponsor, MPH Group. They're opening a brand new kitchen showroom in Dunfermline, Fife, with a VIP Vegas-themed launch weekend from June 14th to 16th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There'll be roulette games with instant win prizes like 10% off services, free boiler services, and a chance to enter a draw for bigger prizes. Land on zero and get entered into a grand draw for a 4-night stay at Trump Tower in Vegas with a helicopter tour. And of course, Donald Trump's not been in the news lately, so you're fine. Don't miss out. RSVP now at www.launch.mph.group to secure your spot. See you there. Well, I won't make any. We won't dwell on the hush trials and the I don't know. Is it 44 counts of? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We
A
are here.
lot, anyway. A lot.
Yes, a lot. I did see a news channel in America have it like a video printer counting up the charges as they were announced. It was funny. But no, we are here to talk about Heart of Midlothian Football Club, of course. We're serious people. And we are going to talk about what Joe Savage's departure could mean for Hearts. Now, at the moment, there's not too much kind of meat on the bones, shall we say. Reached out to Hearts, but I think their position has been no comment. Reached out to a couple other folk. There's been, I think, in some circles, it's not a surprise that this is coming. In other circles, there are people who's like, I did not see this coming in the slightest. But before kind of discussing what it means, I suppose the where to start is the kind of role Savage has done over the last few years. He came in December 2020. Hearts were managed by Robbie Nielsen. At that point, Hearts were in the Championship. And then since then, he's played a key role overseeing various elements of the club. He not only oversees the football side of things for the first team, the B team, the academy, the women's team as well. So during that time, plenty's happened. The Hearts have finished in the top four of the Premiership 3 times, obviously won the Championship, been to Hampden on a number of occasions, mixture of semi-finals and the final. There's been soon to be 2 European group stage involvement, and then there's also been kind of success for the women's team. They've been gradually improving, changes to the academy, the introduction of the B team as well. So definitely packed a lot in.
Yeah, exactly. I think when you put it like that, obviously he's been, like you say, in a very important role where you end up having quite, fingers in quite a lot of pies, I suppose. And, over that time, the Hearts have been pretty successful, again, like over the last few years. Could have been, obviously, it could always be better. There's always things you can always do. You can always be improving. But for the most part, they've been good seasons where, I think the big thing is, kind of similar to when I'm judging a manager, something like this. I've got to go, what did he inherit? And, where's the squad now?
Yeah.
And I think particularly in terms of like the ins and outs of the transfers and stuff, I'm sure we'll get into. I think when you look at that, it's a pretty good record he's got in the market. I think the squad is in a stronger place now than it was back in 2020 when he first came in, was it 2020 or 2021?
2020, yeah, just at the end of 2020. So really got going 2021.
Right, aye. So like, I think over that, I think the squad's in a much better place now than it was then. And obviously, I don't think that's all entirely down to Joe Savage. Obviously, there's other people involved in this. Other scouting things, other outside factors like budgets and all that come into it. But overall, I think he can walk away with his head held high. And I think it had, like, without being too privy to all the details of it and all that kind of stuff, certainly from the outside looking in, it looks as though he's done his job as I understand it. But then it's that thing of, do any of us actually know what a sporting director is or what they do?
Yeah, so that's things. I think it's a role that is. It can be sporting director. I think you can be technical director. You can be director of football. I think all these different names. I think they're all very, very similar, and I think that's spoken to Joe Savage on a number of occasions, and we sat down at the start of the season. It was the case that, like, a lot of it comes down to being judged on signings and recruitment. But of course, sport director is much more involved across all areas of the club. That, like I said, talked about the women's team, talked about the academy. So there's that. There's like infrastructure around it. So even the medical side of things, like the training ground as well. I think when you kind of distill it down, and we'll go on to talk about the transfers, because I think that's the big that's the one that people pay most attention to, because he'll oversee the recruitment team, which is led by Will Lancaster. Always or when Lansfield, I always get his name mixed up. But there's that's the one that people will. Yeah, William Lansfield is the head of recruitment. That's what fans gravitate towards, because again, that's the kind of, they see as the bread and butter for the sporting director, is providing the players or sourcing the players that the manager wants, and then they come in and make the team better. I think kind of to distill it down is Joe Savage got a lot of criticism at the start of the season. There was he was amongst the board that got a lot of criticism. He spoke to Heart Standard about that, about the abuse he had received. But then, interestingly, when looking on Twitter today, the vast majority of fans was like, "What a massive miss! What a huge miss!" And I think you can distill it down to it's like Joe Savage is not nearly as culpable as people were making out at the start of the season. But then he's not. It's not like he leaves in the summer and everything falls apart. I think sometimes the role is blown up one way or another, but it is an important role within any football club. You look at football clubs around just around the world, and the most successful ones have, I think, a strong structure in place where it's not all reliant on a manager. And I think with Stephen Naismith being a very hands-on, but also on the training ground type of coach, he doesn't want to deal with all the stuff that, like, a sporting director is able to alleviate a lot of the stress, a lot of the work that he won't want to be part of, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, the last time that Hearts had a manager that also took on all that kind of stuff as well, was that not back when Levine was also director of football and sacked himself and all the rest of it? That was obviously a ludicrous scenario as well. So this probably works a bit better, I would think. I guess as well, I think the idea is that sporting directors are not tied to the fate of a manager in the same way that maybe like assistant managers and things like that are, or other members of the coaching staff, where if you have a bad season, you have to change manager, like we saw last season. There's still that continuity there on the kind of transfer side of things. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I think it's easy when things are going well to point at something like a sport director and be like, "Oh, look at that! Oh, isn't he brilliant? Look at all these signings that came in. Isn't that fantastic?" But you're right. I think there is, on both sides of it, I think there's maybe a bit too much. What's the word? I don't know, but there's maybe a bit too much faith put into that kind of stuff, where it's like, don't worry, isn't it? You say it's an important job, but it's not like the be all and end all. It's not like it's not the same as like Lloyd Shanklin leaving, or Stephen Naismith getting poached by some other club. It's sporting director where it's kind of like, to be honest, these are kind of backroom figures, and I see this as our job where generally you're not really in the news unless, or people aren't really talking about you unless you've done something wrong, or you're perceived to have done something wrong, then people like to whinge and go, oh, rubbish transfers, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I think day to day, I think as long as people aren't really talking about it, you're probably doing quite a good job, I would think.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's it. If you're not kind of being noticed, then that's where I think just you're kind of doing you're doing your job. Whereas it seems to have over the last kind of 3 years, it's gone from one extreme to another. When a lot of the time it's in the middle, or more towards the positive end of things.
Mm-hmm. I've got to say, I was a little bit surprised by just the reaction to the news, just because not because I think Joe, like I said, I think Joe Savage has done a good job. I think he's, as far as I can tell, he's done really well. But like you say, because like my past experience of that kind of thing was with, like you say, at the start of the season when he was getting a really hard time. Mm-hmm. And people go, you don't get rid of this guy, that kind of stuff. Signing umpties, all that kind of thing. And then to go from that to what we're seeing today, where it's just people going, I've had big loss for the club, bad timing they might talk about as well. So I just think it's interesting that, like you say, it's changed that much. And I think a lot of it does go around to just kind of the overall mood music around the club. It's like when things are going well, you don't really want to see guys in important roles leave because you don't want to rock the boat because things are going well. But
when things are not going well, you want
things are not going well. The first people to point the finger at, and that's just kind of the way it is, isn't it? Like,
and I suppose we'll touch on the transfers over the last few years just now, and again, I would caveat that with putting in Joe Savage not being responsible for all the transfers, good or bad. It's very much a case that there'll be there's the head of recruitment and analysis, some scouts that work underneath him. They recommend players, and then obviously it's the manager who makes the final decision. He himself will push for players that maybe he has worked with or knows. For example, like Lauren Shankland was a key target for Robbie Neilson when Robbie Neilson arrived at Hearts, because he had worked him at Dundee United. He knew he was a very good player and he could score goals, and then that's proven to be correct. But then if a manager brings a player to the table or says he wants X, Y, and Z, it's then the kind of sporting director who will look to try and do a deal for X, Y, and Z. He'll speak to agents, he'll speak to clubs, and that's where he kind of comes into it, rather than the sporting director going around Europe saying you should sign him, and then the manager being forced to sign or play these players. So, I mean, do I want to read out all the arrivals since 2020-21 season?
Deep breath. Here we go.
So, since the winter window of 2021, we have had Gervain Castanier, Shea Logan, Gary Mackay-Steven, Armand Nanjuli, Adam McInnes. Doing this on transfer markets a bit all over the place. Ross Stewart, Josh Ginnelly, Nathaniel Atkinson, Ellis Sims, Toby Civic, Cammy Devlin, Taylor Moore, Ben Woodburn, Benny Menengue, Alex Cochrane, Barry Mackay, and that's that one. Moving on to Lauren Shankland, Orestes Kiyomazoglou, Xander Clark, Alan Forrest, Lewis Nielsen, James Hill, Stephen Humphreys, George Grant, Alex Cochrane again on a permanent transfer, Kai Rose, Garen Kuhl, Yutaro Oda, and Robert Snodgrass. Then there is, this season, we've had Michael McGovern, Callum Newhoff, Oda Lavaya, Kenneth Vargas, Alex Lowry, Kyosuke Tagawa, Frankie Kent, Dexter Lambikisa, and Scott Fraser. And then obviously there's it's understood that obviously Kenneth Vargas's deal has become permanent, and then there is reports of the Jan Danda will join, Blair Spittle, and reportedly James Penrice and Ryan Fulton as well. So I know I'll race through that list fairly quickly, but I think before getting into individuals, because I can I'll look at the ones that stood out, that I think before looking at individual, I think you have to look at it as a bigger picture. What have they delivered? And the team have delivered essentially 3 top 4 finishes, which is a fantastic return, and 3 European qualifications for the first time in the club's history. So, just skimming the surface, it has obviously been pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's that way. You're very reluctant to say they're all brilliant seasons. It's all been perfect because it's not, but of course not. But they've been good seasons, by Hearts' own standards. Those are good seasons. And when you're reading out that list of players, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit scary at the start. When you start reading out, I was like, oh no, this isn't what I had in mind.
Yeah,
it does get better as time goes on, I suppose. But obviously that's because playing a better league, bigger budget, all the rest of it. But yeah, I mean, like when you go through that list, I mean, the majority of those players, I would argue, were up to scratch, at least at the very least. There's maybe some that didn't quite work, that didn't work out for one reason or another. That's going to happen. Nobody gets, that's just what happens with signings. Some just don't work out. It can be good players that don't work out. That's okay. But I think, more often than not, you look at those players, and I think you need to say that most of them have worked out. And right now they've formed the crux of a squad where there's a good few of them where if bids were to come in, you'd be looking at potentially 7-figure transfer fees for some of these players, and they weren't signed for that. So I think that obviously part of that comes down to their own development for us to Hearts. Part of it comes down to the team's overall progress and playing in Europe and things like that. But credit does have to go to the scouting department, and obviously Savage oversees the scouting department, for finding these players who can create further value for Hearts down the line. And in the interim, they can, produce and perform regularly at this level. And I think a lot of those players do. And, again, I think we say the guys like, Cochrane, Devlin, Beningame, even like Barry Mackay, Alan Forrest, big professionals, Shankland, like these are guys who've either come in and like they're really solid, established first team players, or they might one day move, break in like a 7-figure transfer fee. So I think that on that basis alone, you've got to say that probably is a success. Because I mean, when you first came into this, first came into the team 3.5 years ago, how many players in the squad back then would you have said could potentially move for £1 million one day? Like not that many. Let's be frank.
Yeah, I mean, it was a team that had, well, I'll say demoted, but was certainly heading towards the championship. And then, I think it's hard to plan ahead in the championship because, like you've seen it with Kilmarnock, where they got a team that got out of the division, but they had a lot of guys under contract, and then you've seen how much they struggled in the Premiership. We've seen it with Raith Rovers coming against Ross County. There is a big gulf in quality, so you're having to get out of the division before then being able to overhaul it. But like overarching, you look at looking at that list of players, you can fit a lot into you can fit most into like one of 3 categories. Where you look at guys who know Scottish football that have come in and kind of hit the ground running. You're looking at Barry Mackay, Stephen Kingsley, Alan Forrest to an extent. Obviously, signed a few players to come in this summer. So you got guys who kind of know the league. Then you've got guys in England where, again, you expect them to kind of adapt quite well. They're all from a kind of similar age profile. There's very rarely the Hearts now sign someone who is over 26, 27. Kind of seen with Kent, but that was a specific need. And you look at guys in England who are used to playing the physicality side of things, and it's not so much a big adjustment when they come up to Scotland. And then you've got young guys from around the world who have or are around their national team, whether they're in like the under 23s, like Neuenhof and Ottawa, or they are on the cusp of breakthrough into the into the full setup, as Vargas was, as Cammy Devlin was, and then or just guys who have got a lot of promise. So I think there's been a nice balance. I know the club got a lot of criticism at the start of the season for targeting players from around the world, but then you come at the end of the season, Vargas has been a great signing. Callum Neuenhof was turning around before injury. Certainly, Yutaro Road has shown a lot of promise, and then you've got Tagawa, who again scored a couple of cracking goals towards the end of the season. So
do you mean the Player of the Month, Kioski Tagawa?
He's been Heart Standard, yeah, Heart Standard. The club's Player of the Month for May, sponsored by Heart Standard. So if anyone knows anyone who's fluent in Japanese, then let us know so we can sort out an interview with Kiyosaki later on this summer. So yeah, I think overall it's been a healthy healthy transfer strategy. The one thing that, and I know Joe Savage has said this, said it to us publicly, that probably the one thing he's really disappointed in is that they've not had a player who they've kind of turned over for big money. That there are, like you said, there are players within that squad who you think Hearts can recoup a good fee for, but at the moment there's not been a big sale the way that like Aberdeen or Hibs have over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean that is the one thing I think you'd probably have to hold against them. Like, I think that the early stages of all that groundwork have gone in. Like we say, I think in terms of identifying players from all over the world, getting them from leagues where there's perceived value, likes of Costa Rica and Japan, or just places where we feel that you can get these players and kind of polish them into being like proper first team players, and then get them a move further down the line. So I mean that all takes time to set up, and getting these players to come in, that takes time, and then giving them a couple of years to develop, that all takes time. But yeah, certainly now at the point where you do need to start selling at some point in order for this transfer model to work, and particularly, and now obviously Hearts aren't in need of money at the moment. The club's in a very good financial position, particularly obviously European football coming in, hotels now on the go as well. Basically take your pick. There's a whole bunch of reasons why Hearts don't really need to, not just really have to sell players or anything like that. But again, it's I think it's important to do that. Whether that be in this over the summer, maybe probably, or even the following summer, to start getting into that habit. So I think the big one, this obviously, aside from Shankland, because obviously that's its own thing. As with most things with Shankland, that's its own thing. We'll deal with that as a separate entity. But I think the big ones for me, I'd be looking at this summer, would be someone like Alex Cochrane, who is obviously came in. He's done really well. He's English. He's been trained from Brighton's academy, and you look at him and you go like, oh, okay, he could be. I could see him, moving back down south for a decent sizable fee, because I think he's got 12 months left in his contract, and obviously James Penrice is coming in as well, so there could well be a wee bit of thing there. So again, you don't want to wish players away. You don't want to see them go because they're good players, especially somebody like Cochrane. But you could absolutely see, you'd see someone like him perhaps moving on this summer for a decent transfer fee. And again, that's a sort of habit that Hearts do have to get into, because when you start just making profit on these players, it does allow you to sort of build up your finances and then take bigger gambles on other players who maybe command a slightly higher price. Because the thing is, they're not all going to work out, of course they're not, but these ones, we're kind of looking around the world, those are the ones that are probably going to make you money at some point down the line. But at some point or another, you're going to have to start selling somebody.
Yeah, and that money, it can either cover what would be made in if the club don't get into the European like league phase or group stage as they want for each season, or if they do, then it just a massive addition to that. Can I just finish up on Savage, looking at what it means for Hearts and looking ahead? So I just want to bring in a couple of comments here. So Graham says, hi guys, hope you're well. Losing Savage was unexpected, and I think over his time, I think he has got more right than wrong. Be interesting to see who comes in and need to be the right fit. James Govan says, was the club aware that this was going to happen, or has it been out of the blue? If so, you could hope that they've already been looking for someone new already. So what I can say on those is, I wouldn't say out of the blue from Hearts. I know in recent kind of weeks and months, Joe Savage, he was linked to the Stoke City role at Stoke City. I think Jonathan Walters, ex-Stoke City player, he ended up taking it, but Joe Savage's name was mentioned within that. And then there's also been reports that he has had or kind of just attracted interest from other clubs down south. So when those reports are happening, you do think that there could be a time that there will be a change. And I think, as always, clubs won't be in such a situation, won't be reactive. They'll probably be understanding that this could come down the line, just like when with managers, clubs should or usually do have potential. They will look at potential managers who could come in if their manager was to be sacked or taken away. So that's that. I think that's part of it. So I don't think it's a massive surprise. And then when it comes to like the short term of the transfer window, I think you'll see, Nace was talked about before, a lot of work has already been put in and prepared and ready. And like with regard to bringing or identifying players, I think there's not a massive. There won't be an issue. Maybe when it comes to actually getting deals over the line, but we're not sure when Savage actually officially leaves. There'll be like a work, a notice that he'll have to work, and then obviously with the way the setup of the coaching setup and with the manager already in kind of in play with Naismith, that usually you're thinking it's like the sporting director comes in, then the manager comes in. That I think there'll be enough experience and knowledge at the club to deal with any bridge in kind of a gap if Savage leaves and no one else comes in. But at the moment, I am unsure of timings of when Savage will leave and if they're kind of actively looking for a replacement. So that's all I can really say on that end.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. That's a point. Because there will be people that will go, "Oh God, like he's leaving right as the window's about to open. No, that's not good. Like what are the implications to that?" And you're right. I mean, there will be some sort of knock-on effects at some point, I'm sure. But I think the important thing to remember is that it's not as if the transfer window opens tomorrow, then they go, right, okay, let's start phoning around. Like let's go, who's that guy over there? Let's go see what he's like. Like they've a lot of these players, they're thoroughly scouted, they're thoroughly identified long ahead of time, and I'd imagine that Naismith has a wish list and probably a couple of wish lists of okay, ideally I'd like this guy. If we can't get him, then maybe this guy, and if we can't get him, then maybe this guy. So again, I think that I wouldn't have thought it would make too much difference to like Hearts' immediate transfer plans. I mean, I think in terms of the players that they're interested in, I guess I'm sure that's long been established. But you're right. I mean, if there might well be a case of actually just physically getting the actual contract signing deals over the line. There might be a little bit of a delay with that, I suppose, just because if you're losing some of his experience. But again, like you say, you would imagine they've got other candidates lined up because that's what a good board does. That's a sensible, well-run club does. They've got contingency options, for if people in important positions do move on. Like that's just a responsible thing to do, and I'm sure that will be the case at Hearts.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's definitely one to keep an eye on. But I think there's a really good point that you kind of mentioned earlier on, that for the next person that comes in, and there's a really good foundation there already. Then you talked about how you judged Joe Savage on what was there before he came in and then what's there after. And Hearts, whether it's all down to him or he's been part of it, the kind of standards have been raised, and there's been investment in different areas of the club, whether it's the women's team, whether it's into the training ground with the bistro, and then the training pitches that will be getting kind of done up at the Orium this year. And then you've got the first team, and we've spoken to Naismith a number of times this season. He's talked about all the different things he wants to bring to the team. Wants to kind of professionalize stuff, bring up the standards, and then you've got a really solid foundation in place. So the next sporting director come in probably doesn't have to change a lot, but you want someone to come in there who is experienced. Ideally, you want someone with a really good contacts book that is able to get and kind of have his ear to the ground, so he knows what's happening around football. He knows potential players who coming into are in difficult situations, or he can work well with agents, he can work well with other clubs. So yeah, it'll be it's an important role, maybe not as important as people think, and maybe not as or deserve as much criticism as people think, but it's a good place for someone next to come in, and I think that's down to the work that's been done over the last few years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I'd imagine it's a very attractive proposition. The fact that you've got a team that, like we've already said, it's already got lots of talented players in there, and that it's playing in a league where there's often a bit of a path from like good Scottish players or good players who do well in the Scottish Premiership can often get good moves down to England because it's kind of similar stylistically. Regular European football, there's going to be guaranteed income from that, and it's now, and obviously just now, I think Hearts is trying to really establish themselves as that third force. And if that happens, then yeah, I mean, it is a really attractive proposition because you are going to be able to take, kind of gambles, I suppose, on these players from kind of all over the world, and bring them into European football and see how they do, and then if they do well, you can claim the credit. So I'm sure it's a really. Again, you think where his Hearts are just now, particularly off the field, in terms of finances, money, and all the rest of it. I would imagine that's probably the most appealing part. The jobs as sporting director is going to be things like budgets and how many budget, are there restrictions on what they can do? The bigger the budget, the bigger the fewer restrictions. So yeah, I would think that I don't think Hearts will be short of like applicants, put it that way. I think. Although I did see one name that was getting bandied a wee bit about today. I mean, this is just pure rampant Twitter speculation. I don't think there's anything concrete to it, but it was Takis Fisas.
Yes, I was just about to bring in Greg M. Shout Takis to take over Savage Row. I'm all for it. Nothing substantial there, other than he was brilliant as a player, one of my favourites, and he's European as well, makes it more exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, having a continental sporting director, it's just a bit more. Yeah, we have a sexier. It's good.
And what's his? Another shout was the social network. I would like Takis or David Weir. David Weir is currently technical director of Premier League club Brighton and Hove Albion. Not sure it'd be quite as well paid as a Brighton role. But again, someone who has established worked in different roles since retiring, being a manager as well. Vastly experienced, knows the club again, cup winner.
Yeah, I couldn't really see that happening though. Could you, David? We're going from Brighton to the Hearts. I mean, working for a club with one of the biggest budgets in the world, and this really exciting recruitment thing that they're doing, and they're constantly signing all these amazing guys. It kind of seems like Brighton's recruitment department is like the place to be if you're in that kind of work at the moment, right?
Yes, but Hearts are a bigger club.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah, I don't know. Absolutely, it's not many people leave the Premier League to then come to Scotland. And then I remember Barry Anderson interviewed John Robertson. He's on the lookout for his next role after leaving Inverness Caledonian Thistle, where he was sporting director. So who knows there? Another possible turn for a Hearts legend. Just before we move on and finish, Graham mentions when can Dander Penrig's split officially be announced? As Source Networker says, today is May 31st when the contract's 10-10, so anytime really. In June, we probably should see announcements come through, like Jan Dander, worst kept secret in world football. I'm sure he might be the first one to be announced. But before we finish, because I have got things to, I've got somewhere to be. What did you make of the new Hearts home kit, James?
I quite like it. Yeah. I mean, I'll need to see it up close first.
Yes.
Honestly, I think that kind of faded stripes thing, sometimes looks great. Sometimes I'm not convinced by it. I think I will need to wait to see it in person first. So I'm cautiously saying I quite like it. But I'm not committing to it yet because I'm still not sure. And also, I don't think I've seen the shorts. I think I've only seen the top. Is it just basically just plain white shorts?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not seeing the shorts either. But I know from being told that the kit is much better. It's the kind of the different shades are much more pronounced in person, and it does look because there's some pictures where like Aidan Denham just looks like he's wearing an all maroon, and you can't really notice the stripes. So
it's tricky when they've got that, the fancy lighting and stuff on it.
Yeah.
See what's it actually look like though, Yeah.
No, I think
it looks quite nice. So I like that. Nice and clean.
Yeah, it does. It fits in with the shirt. I think the Umbro. I think they've not really messed with home kit since they've returned and doing them. There's been there's been quite a few who've been quite safe, but I think that's what you want from a home kit. Is you just want something simple. You just want them a nice maroon, maybe a callback to a different shirt, and then it's with the away or the third kit where you can go right. Let's do something a wee bit crazy. So no, I think it looks like another good effort, and hopefully I might later on see the actual kit. So I may. Even on 35, I may have to spend £58.70 on a Hearts kit. And then about the keeper's top, I like it. I think the keeper's top. You go again. You do something just garish.
I'm not sure about it yet. I'm not gonna lie. When I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, that's not great." But I get the feeling it might be one that might grow on me.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you say, keeper's tops. I mean, they're all these bright, colourful things anyway, aren't they? I mean, like they basically exist just to try and distract strikers now. In terms of people have they start flapping their arms around. So yeah, I guess it's just a sign of the times. But it looks quite retro, doesn't it? Kind of like a kind of like 90s kind of tracky or something like that, almost.
Yeah, so I'm looking at. I think there was the keeper's kit in the 90s with Gilles Rousset wore, where there was like loads of kind of patches and patterns, and then ever since up until more recently that they've all been pretty meh, just they've kind of been brightly coloured. But the last couple of years, they've had some funky designs on it. I'm all for some funkiness with it.
So will you put your money where your mouth is and buy one?
Oh no, I find that weird. I'm not sure why you would, but unless you're a goalkeeper, I'm not sure why you would buy a goalkeeper top.
Yeah. You don't really, unless it's a really nice one, I suppose. If it's a really nice top, I'd be at it. But apart from that, and then we just get a normal kit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like the long. I don't mind the long sleeve kit, but I don't know. It just feels weird wearing a goalkeeper top out and about. It's like I happily wear Hearts home kit to if I was going to the pub before a game or just kicking about. But the goalkeeper top, it's just I don't know. I was about to say something really, really bad there, but I'll save it for off camera. I would say red flags would be risen if I saw a middle-aged man wearing a goalkeeper's top kicking about.
Unless it's quite dark.
Yeah, on it. He's allowed to wear it on this on the pitch. But just my opinion. Before we get into any more bother, we will leave it there. And once again, thank you very much, James. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, for subscribing, for engaging, and everything you do. It's all very much appreciated. We've got plenty on the site from the past week, including a couple of pieces from a sit-down or that interview I had with Liam Fox, just all about the B team. And we'll have plenty of stuff over the next week as well. But until Monday or the start of next week when we'll do another video, hope everyone has a lovely weekend, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.